Jump is not able to make it this morning. Apparently he's ill, hopefully not too seriously ill, and so has been asked to do then this morning. And then with the session to start with a few minutes of breathing, and then we do analytical meditation on the subject of bodhicitta. And I'll use as a basis for that meditation one of the verses within the text, and then to reflect around that aspect of developing bodhicitta that's contained within that verse. So then just to sit comfortably in a position which is conducive for the mind to be focused. Usually best if the back can be straight, but in such a way that you remain relaxed. And then to bring the mind into the present moment. And so if we're able to focus on the breath during the first part of the session, remaining right here in the present moment, not being distracted by sounds outside, sounds inside, and particularly then thoughts arising, memories arising from the past, plans for the future imposing themselves on us. Just to note these, make it our business to remain here in the present moment, because if we're able to do this, then it prepares the mind the best way for the second part of the meditation. And then that becomes helpful for preparing the mind for the teaching today and the other aspects of the program which we engage during today. So if you have your own method that you apply to focus the mind, then please use that. If you don't have your own method, then one way is to maintain an awareness of the sensation of the air as it comes in through the nostrils and passes out. And trying to remain focused on the experience of the sensation of the breath, while at the same time being mindful and also alert in relation to the distractions that may arise, and not to get caught up in their story, just to note them as they arise, to be aware of their arisal and to bring our mind back to the present moment. So our business here during this short duration of time of focusing the mind on the breath, our business is to continually come back to the object on which you're focusing. And so then just to continue like this for the first part of this session. So if your mind has already wandered away, and just to bring it back again, to sense how it is that the mind wanders away in the same way, in a similar way to how it is if you're at a picnic and you have the care of a young child that started to crawl or walk. And it's the nature, the way it is for a young child, that they're going to wander away from that picnic rug. So your business is to maintain the awareness of what the child's doing. Maintain awareness of your mind as it tends to wander away. And then as the child starts to wander away, at a certain point, with being conscientious and diligent, but at the same time being relaxed, understanding that this is a tendency of the child to wander away, then to bring the child back to the rug. So likewise, we bring our mind back no matter how many times. Our business is to be alert and to be relaxed and to bring the mind back no matter how many times we need to do this. So then now to the main body of the meditation. Just to read here. This is verse 28, the first chapter. Although wishing to be rid of misery, they run towards misery itself. Although wishing to have happiness, like an enemy, they ignorantly destroy it. So this really, in a sense, is the way of the world. That if your mind is pervaded by ignorance, you're going to have the afflictions. And the afflictions see things in a mistaken way. So when the mind is conditioned by these afflictions of attachment and anger, jealousy, pride, and so on, then when the mind is conditioned by these, you see the world according to those afflictions. So you have a distorted image of how things exist. And it's on the basis of that create the causes for suffering, although wishing to create the causes for happiness. And so, of course, in the world, if people don't have methods, don't understand the causes for happiness and the causes for suffering, although they wish to have happiness and wish to be free from suffering, it's going to be very difficult to create the causes for the happiness they wish and to abandon the causes of suffering. And so we may tune in to the news. There may be a particular station on the radio or internet or whatever that we listen to regularly, maybe each day, to tune in to what is happening in the world. And we hear all about all that that's occurring in the world, all the events. And it's presented in a particular way. But another way, from Buddhist perspective, is to look at it from this point of view of seeing the world and beings whose minds are conditioned by ignorance, and then they have the afflictions. And then we see before us on the screen suffering arising out of this. It doesn't matter what you wish, what the people wish on the TV or the movies or whatever. They wish to have happiness. But if the mind is conditioned by ignorance and they don't have a method, extremely difficult to create the causes for that which all beings wish, happiness and to be free of suffering. And so if we've made connection with Buddhism and have developed some faith in it and have a refuge, we have a basis there for abandoning the causes for suffering and creating the causes for happiness. And in so doing, then we become an inner being, a being that understands fulfillment, happiness, arises in dependence upon the development of the heart and mind. And then also, if we've made contact with Mahayana Buddhism, we've come to understand at the heart of this, what determines whether it's Mahayana or not is the mind of bodhicitta. So if this is the case, then we have most likely some kind of conceptual understanding of the incredible value of developing that motivation, the aspiration to reach enlightenment in order to remove all beings from suffering. And so we're very fortunate if in fact we have not just met Buddhism, but also Mahayana Buddhism. We are very blessed. However, even in the words there of that verse, and reading it again, although wishing to be rid of misery, they run towards misery itself. Although wishing to have happiness, like an enemy, they ignorantly destroy it. So merely to have met Buddhism and then also to see it, perhaps see ourselves as not just Buddhists, but also Mahayana Buddhists, doesn't necessarily mean that we are really adopting the practices of Buddhism or Mahayana Buddhism. Those verses may still very much apply to us. And understandably so, because ignorance has been existing since the beginning of this time, and the habits are deeply ingrained, like water running downhill. So easy to create the causes for suffering and not to create the causes for happiness. And if through this life, especially prior to meeting Buddhism, we had a predisposition to creating negative actions, and also we were never brought up or never led to a method of inner development or the attitude of how important it is to use one's life to serve others, then the habits of this life early on are deeply ingrained, can be deeply ingrained. And so when misfortune occurs, and we never know when misfortune may occur in our life, everything seemed to be okay, everything was in place. Our meditation practice, our family situation, everything, our job was in place. And then some catastrophe occurred. As we've just seen, with the virus, the manifestation of this. Then if this can manifest it like this, then other things can occur in our life that we can't be certain about. And it may be the case when those events occur, the personal catastrophe, that the words are on the page, we've read them, we've meditated on them, but it may not be so very strongly imprinted in our mind and our heart. And so when that misfortune occurs, and it can be misfortune can occur at the hands of another person, a partner, a parent, a child, a relative, someone who's previously a friend or employer. And a sense of betrayal arises. Particularly in that case where we felt in the thought transformation teachings someone who I've helped gives me terrible harm. No great hopes gives me terrible harm. I'll see them as my holy guru. But it's not necessarily the case that this will occur when the injustice occurs, when the betrayal occurs, when the hurt manifests in our heart. The last thing that's arising within us is an altruistic attitude. Not just an altruistic attitude towards the person, it's lacking there. But we may feel also let down by others. Others hadn't prepared us for this event. And so as they talk about that thing about a rainy day Dharma practitioner practices Dharma when everything's okay. But when the personal catastrophe, the tragedy of the falling part of the life occurs, Dharma doesn't arise, resentment arises. And so it is really important to more deeply meditate on this importance, regardless of what happens, that we maintain the good heart towards others. Because when that event occurs, when that injustice occurs, it can be so emotionally upset, so distressed. And you can grasp at methods to deal with it. But the mind can be so overwhelmed. It's like entering another realm. And in that realm, the mind of bodhicitta does not arise. The altruistic mind does not arise. And so if it is the case, and it's a very good chance, from now until the death time, something may happen that really brings about hurt. That no matter what occurs, no matter what injustice, whatever unfairness occurs, that the understanding is that the best way through this is maintain the good heart, to never separate away from the mind of good heart, and particularly if we can, the mind of bodhicitta. It's that quality of mind which will allow us to see through or pass through this tragedy or betrayal. Because in those situations when that occurs, and it can very much happen in Dharma centers, people dedicate themselves to working for the Dharma center, put in many years of service, much sacrifice, financial sacrifice, family sacrifice, and so on for the center. And in the end, people don't necessarily have appreciation for you. They just want to get rid of you. And so even in Dharma centers, people can become embittered. So no matter what happens, whatever injustice occurs, it is the mind that remains concerned about the welfare of others, which will allow us to weather that and also give us the opportunity for inner growth and to be able to benefit others. If we can see through that, go through that loss and bitterness, and come out with good heart, then we can support others when they go through the same thing, because we know what it's like. Because within that state, when that occurs, when these events occur in people's lives, often people, the attitude is, well, no one's helped me. No one's prepared me for this. Therefore, why should I help anyone else? And so then, of course, with this, this becomes a wonderful opportunity to really experience how the altruistic mind is the source of happiness. So when the unfairness occurs or the falling apart of life occurs, rather than that being a curse, we should try to look on it as a blessing, the work of the Buddhas to help us develop inner understanding. So then now, just to dedicate whatever positive results of meditating this way, focusing the mind firstly, and then reflecting on how beneficial it is to maintain the altruistic mind. So dedicate whatever results there are to developing the attitudes and motivation for the session. We're going to do the teaching. To have an attitude of a sense of appreciation for receiving teachings on this text of Shantideva's Bodhisattva's way of life. So that it can become a way, the effect of it can become an effect on our mind, so as to become a way that we are able to lead our life in the future in the best way for ourselves and for others. Okay, so thank you.